In whole life, the two most important thoughts are, what do we think about mental illness, and what do we think about people who experience it? There is a whole world full of theories about what mental illness is, some of which are more helpful than others. The common myth is that mental illness is inherited, that there is something fundamentally wrong with our brains or neurochemistry, that it is inevitable in some families, that once touched by it we will always be affected by it. We may never fully recover and will have to rely on medication and expert services for the rest of our lives. Now we can see why services were traditionally designed the way they were. They had to provide support for those that were damaged, different and not likely to recover, and needed protecting from the realities of life. Mental health and mental illness exist on a continuum, all of us at one time in our lives being touched by their effects. But we know that this is part of our well-being fluctuating. We know that everyone has health, wisdom, potential inside. We know that recovery from our distressing periods is not only possible but inevitable, and that those periods do not define us. We also know that we have our own unique answers, and that sometimes these answers become clearer when we are in the company of someone we trust. Someone who can help us get back in touch with our wisdom and who reminds us of who we really are. Now imagine how services and supports could be designed around that.
It sounds as though the situation is completely overwhelming at the moment.
These perspectives are just two different ways of thinking about mental health, but I know which perspective I'd rather invest in and would choose for my loved ones. Simple stuff.
You're not the only person who feels like this.
My name is Julian Bareham, and I come from Diss in Norfolk, and I've been a service user for the last 23 years, in and out of hospital with 8 admissions, and I've pretty well come to understand not only my own illness, or as the psychiatric profession would like to have it as an illness, but also the way the psychiatric services have treated me, and others, and I have a good handle on the psychiatric services as they are today, and I have a good feel of how they ought to be changed so that people like myself who suffer with highs and lows which are beyond normal boundaries of normality are treated with respect and understand that they are emerging as different people from this and want to be treated as human beings and not as a bunch of chemicals on 2 legs, which I feel is how I've been treated.
Cathy Smith is a chaplain for Cornwall Partnership NHS Trust.
For me, a whole life is about seeing somebody as a complete person, not breaking them up. We have specialists who deal with particular sorts of presentations. Somebody may have a physical problem or a mental issue or an emotional difficulty, or maybe financial or family problems. And it's very easy to focus in narrowly on that. For me, whole life is the approach that's about seeing the complete person and recognising that whatever is the big issue for them right now is what's important.
I think some people struggle to understand how you could balance being a specialist clinician or expert along with the really humane part of the philosophy of whole life. And yet if any one of those people stopped and thought about it, it is just being human, putting yourself in the place of the people that you're working with clinically or in an expert way and imagining what they want for the whole of the rest of their life. You're just a tiny little moment in time providing some expertise.
Now let's consider how our practice can change when we see things differently.